Another question that came up this week at one of the fairs in the prairies and has come up before is I've got children. What about my children? And we'll have to explain a little bit about the way most of the BC offshore schools work in China, and that is that they are typically grade 10 to 12 programs, which may be standalone programs, or they may be part of a larger public school campus or even part of a private school campus, where the K to 9 section of the school is generally going to be a Chinese program. So in the case of my own children who were born in China, they were comfortable with the language and they attended first a Chinese public school and then later the Chinese portion of the private school that we worked for. So they attended Chinese classes as an international student, which was both challenging and rewarding for them. Again, my children were born in China, so they were exposed to the language at a very young age and were very comfortable with it, even if they weren't 100% fluent when they started school. So you would need to ask yourself about your own children's comfort level and age. If they're just going to be starting school, certainly, as Canadians, we know our schools are full of immigrant children with limited English proficiency when they start kindergarten or grade 1, and part of that whole schooling process gets them engaged in the language and integrated in the culture, and they're able to adapt, most of them very successfully. So the same could be said of the experience in China. If you're going to bring children who are older but who aren't yet high school age, it can be a lot more challenging. I've personally witnessed great success stories, but also very challenging and less than successful experiences. I think a lot of it has to do with your children's personality, I wouldn't bring a child with a learning disability and drop them off in a Chinese classroom, for one thing. Um, Learning disabilities are generally go undiagnosed in China, and they're not something that local teachers have been prepared to deal with. Um, so that would be a consideration. And again, just your child's openness to being in a situation like that. That's your call. So if you've got a child between the age of grade 1 and grade 9, it's a lot more challenging. We don't have any schools that currently offer a Canadian program from grade 1 to 9. So if you are serious about that, you might want to look for a school that does offer that. And if a school is offering grades 1 to 9 in the Canadian program, that program is only available for expatriate children, in other words, for non-Chinese passport holders. So you would be wanting to look for an employer that has a, quote, foreign national school, which there are a few out there, but they're few and far between. Now, if your child is high school age, grade 10 to 12, then our schools would absolutely love to have them tuition free in the program, because most of the student body are locals, and having a foreign child, Canadian or other foreign child, in the program is a great benefit for not only the students in the classroom who get to hear different perspectives on things, but also it's wonderful for the teacher. I know that when I was teaching social studies in China, I never did have a native English speaker in my class, but I had a French boy, an Israeli, a number of South Koreans, one North Korean, Taiwanese, etc. And each one of those kids brought a totally different perspective on things. And as a social studies teacher, it was absolutely wonderful to have them in the class. And I know that their classmates, their local classmates, very much appreciated it and benefited from it too. So I hope that helps. If you have specific questions about your unique situation, please feel free to reach out to us and see if we can find a solution. I should add one more thing. Of course, there are a number of families that have homeschooled their kids while teaching in China. If you have a teaching spouse and a non-teaching spouse, that can work perfectly well. And we also have certain schools within our group with a pre-BC program, which means these are students who are typically going to be grade 8 and 9 level in China, who are studying to prepare to get into the British Columbia program in grade 10. And that would also be a place where a junior high age teacher's child could easily fit in. And even though their age might not be quite as old as their classmates, probably in terms of maturity and certainly in terms of language ability, etc., they may fit in nicely. And we've got examples of that working quite well.